Hello, everybody. I'm Enid Weichselbaum, a member of the League of Women Voters Rochester. I would like to welcome all of you tonight, the candidates, the audience, and those viewing at a later time or on live stream. I welcome you to this forum sponsored by the League of Women Voters Rochester. We'd also like to thank our generous partners in tonight's forum, the Rochester Post-Bulletin, the Rochester Area Chamber of Commerce, and the Rochester Public Library for your support. The League of Women Voters is a volunteer organization organized at the local, state, and national level to encourage citizens to participate in government. While we as a league do study and take stands on certain issues, we never endorse a candidate or political party. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters Rochester or any partner or sponsor of the forum. And the sponsorship of the forum is not an endorsement of any candidate. It is our purpose in sponsoring these forums to provide you with an opportunity to hear candidates discuss face-to-face issues that are important to you. Tonight's questions have come from the League of Women Voters, the Rochester Post-Bulletin, the Chamber of Commerce, and members of our audience. Some members have, audience has sent in questions online as well. You're welcome to submit written questions. Hold the card up, and one of our volunteers will fetch it and bring it to our question table. You're welcome to submit as many written questions for the candidates as you like. If you are watching live stream, you can email your questions to lwvrochester@lwvmn.org. Tonight's volunteers who are managing the questions are also League volunteers. And as it concerns questions that are unclear, hostile, or of a personal nature will not be used. Given our format, your questions must relate to both candidates. Questions that fall in the same general area or have been addressed in a previous answer or in opening statements may be consolidated to allow the moderator to cover as many topics as possible in the time allotted. We appreciate questions that are forward-thinking rather than a review of past issues. If the answer you get is unclear, please feel free to submit a follow-up question or speak to the candidate after the forum. Cards will become the property of the League of Women Voters Rochester. There's never enough time to cover all the issues in a limited time and setting such as this. Please feel free to contact your candidate's campaign headquarters directly if your questions are not addressed tonight. We'd like to thank all candidates for running for office, for offering to serve your community, and for the enormous time, dedication, and commitment that running and serving demand. We encourage our members as individuals, as we encourage each of you to get involved in your community and political party of your choice. Tonight, we are welcoming candidates for the school board seat number 6. Candidates for this seat are Cathy and Elena Niehoff. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to offer an opening statement. The candidates will then respond in turn to questions provided by the League of Rochester, this evening's partners, and by the audience. Candidates will have 75 seconds each to answer. The candidates will then have 2 minutes each to make a closing statement. I would like to suggest to the candidates that you make your answers as succinct as possible so that we can cover as many questions as possible. You don't have to use all 75 seconds. We would like to cover as many questions as possible. Each candidate has 3 30-second rebuttal cards. These can be used at any point after each candidate has answered a question. Only 1 rebuttal card may be used per question. Please put the card in the black basket after you've used it. I'd like to remind the audience to remain quiet during the forum. Hold your applause until the end of the forum and turn off all of your electronic devices. Timekeepers tonight are League of Women Voters volunteers, Jan Strand and Eric Voldal. Questions will be screened by League of Women Voter members Maggie Brimijoin and Rachel LaForge. Asking questions will be Jordan Shearer from the Post-Bulletin, and the Rochester Chamber of Commerce has sent in a question from them. By luck of the draw, candidate Nathan will speak first for her opening statement. I do want to say to candidates that I will be calling on you in a random fashion. Both of you you'll each get to answer each question, but after that there will not be a pattern. So you have to stay on your toes. All right, I think we can begin, and candidate Nathan will begin with her opening statement.
Good evening. My name is Cathy Nathan, and I bring over 30 years of advocacy, family engagement, and policy analysis experience to the school board. I'm running for my second term for Seat 6 to continue to use my voice to champion schools where all students feel safe and welcomed, and all educators and families feel respected and supported. I will use my votes to back up my words with programs and resources that drive student success. Our students need continued support to meet their learning goals and to feel like they belong in their schools. Educators need support for teaching and curriculum with culturally responsive strategies. Everyone wants schools to be safer and welcoming to all students and families. The district's Planning for Purpose strategic plan was designed with multiple components that will accelerate positive opportunities and outcomes for all students. But for this strategic plan to be successful, Rochester needs school board members who are passionate about listening when our students tell us what they need to learn, and when educators and families tell us what they need to teach and support students. Rochester needs school board members who are prepared to use credible information, best practices, and data analysis and decision-making. Rochester needs persistent school board members who advocate for opportunities and resources for everyone in our diverse community, who hold the district accountable to improve student academics, provide transparent financial management, and create a positive learning environment in schools. With your votes, I will continue to be that passionate, prepared, and persistent school board member, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions tonight.
Thank you. Candidate Niehoff.
Good evening. I would like to say thank you to League of Women Voters, Post Bulletin, and the Chamber of Commerce, Rochester Public Library. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to participate in this debate. My name is Elena Niehoff. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm a certified public health nurse. I worked at Mayo Clinic and other healthcare organizations. My family and I have immigrated from Ukraine many years ago. I'm very grateful to the American people that they gave me opportunity to live and thrive in this beautiful country, and I love this country. I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a woman of faith in Jesus Christ. I'm running for the school board position to refocus our primary goal back to the basics, teaching the basic academics. I believe proficiency in reading, writing, and arithmetics should be our priority. Instead, I see my opponent focusing on social engineering, all kinds of theories like white privileges, oppressed and oppressors, like gender identities. These theories are not helpful. I stand for equality of opportunity for all children, to preserve children's innocence, for restoring discipline in the classrooms, for restoring academic excellence, and to protect parental rights. Please vote for me. My name is Elena Niehoff, and our website is foryourchildren.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll begin with questions. First question comes from the League of Women Voters, Rochester. We're going to begin with candidate Niehoff. As we know, the Rochester Public Schools is in need of additional teachers and staff. What can the school board do to attract and retain more teachers who reflect our diverse student population?
Thank you for asking this question. I think it is an extremely important question. And what I'm going to do, I will support every teacher, regardless of the color of skin. I will support policies that will reward teachers for the basis of merit. The notion that the child learns better with the teacher of the same color is just a theory. It is not practical for the real life. I spoke to a lot of teachers, and they said the true problem actually is the disrespect in the classrooms. And also, the big problem was the corona pandemic measures. If we address those issues, we will retain the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Nathan.
Well, increasing the diversity of teachers continues to be a focus of our strategic plan. One of the ways we've talked about growing the teacher population, unfortunately, in the educational teacher programs, we're not seeing very many diverse teachers graduate right now. So we're really focusing on growing our own, developing our youth to see teaching as a profession that they want to participate in. We have teaching as a profession courses at CTEC for our high school career exploration. We have a para-to-teacher program where our paraprofessionals can work on elementary teacher licensure in the evenings, but we have some financial and time barriers to eliminate so that more can participate. We will, as a district, continue to advocate for the Minnesota legislature to pass the Teachers of Color Act to provide resources for building that teacher workforce at the state level. And as far as retaining our current teachers, especially our teachers of color, what we're hearing from teachers is their ability to meet and work together to share the issues that they have as teachers, particularly as teachers of color across the district, is one way to retain teachers. And it's also a way to share that information when we're recruiting teachers at job fairs and outside of the district.
Thank you. Our next question will come from the Rochester Post Bulletin. We're going to begin with Candidate Nathan.
Is this on? Yeah. Okay. The current school board members and the block of challengers have expressed starkly different views on many subjects and have very different views about what is the best, what the best direction for the school district is. What do you believe is at stake at this election for Rochester School Board?
Well, I think everything is at stake. We've spent the past year, as I said, listening to our teachers and our students and our families to find out what they need to have our students succeed. And we have developed the most extensive strategic plan that this community has seen with regard to our schools. We've already started implementing that strategic plan. And it would be devastating to our students' future to derail the focus on academic improvements that's in that strategic plan and coupling it with the focus on welcoming and belonging for our students. Our students cannot be academically successful if they do not feel like they are welcomed and that they belong in their school, no matter their identities, no matter their characteristics, no matter what groups they may come from, no matter their national origin or the language that they speak at home. So I think what's at stake is, are you going to elect leaders in this community for the school board who will support the implementation of the strategic plan and the positive impacts it will have on our student success?
Thank you. Candidate Niehoff.
Would you please repeat again?
Yes, absolutely. The current school board members and the block of challengers have expressed very different views on many subjects and have very different views about what is the best direction for the school districts. What do you believe is at stake at this election for the Rochester School Board?
I see one of the biggest problems is academic achievements. Even though present Rochester School Board had done so many steps and have the strategic planning, the academic achievements are still dropping. And I want to explain, Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment Score for Rochester students grade 3 through 11 fell 24.4% in mathematics and 9.3% in reading, since 2013. And I want to repeat, since 2013, which means it didn't start yesterday. So, other thing is, I would like to mention that the debt of Rochester Public School Board is huge. There is a $307,525,000 in debts. And the school board is paying $24 million every year for the debt payment. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Nathan. Oh, sorry.
They both respond.
I forgot to write that down. Okay, thank you. Our next question that actually is coming from the Chamber of Commerce. And the Chamber of Commerce asks, we will begin with candidate Niehoff. The education and experience students receive in the school district plays an essential role in the development of our community's workforce. What recent successes with both the P-TECH and C-TECH programs, and how would you look into to enhance and grow the student opportunities for career readiness?
It is absolutely crucial to prepare children for the workforce. And that our focus is going to be on real life experiences, which means we will not tolerate the politics in the schools which take the time, effort, and money, but we will promote everything to prepare children for the real life, including the academics, including the skills, and all kinds of good experience.
Thank you. Candidate Nathan.
Well, C-TECH and P-TECHs are definitely model programs nationally recognized for developing the workforce skills. And it is our workforce partners that help those happen. So the first step would be to continue to build those community and workforce partners who want to help us expose our students to real life, real world working experience. The problem with C-TECH and P-TECH is that they're only experienced by a small number of high school students. And I would like to see these kinds of opportunities expanded broadly. One of the ways to do this is in our strategic plan, we have our students exploring their skills and interests as early as elementary school, so they can start to identify the kinds of areas that they're interested in and the areas in the workforce that they would like to explore. We're also looking at giving them more opportunities to explore those in middle school and extend it into high school. I was able to attend some of the end of the year presentations at C-TECH and P-TECH, and I got to see these students upon graduating from these programs, their real world application of all their knowledge and skills. I just want to see that be extended to more students.
Thank you. And our next question is coming from the audience. We will begin with candidate Nathan. Is teaching, is teaching just the basics in school enough to ensure that all students are prepared to succeed in their futures?
Everything we do is designed to help students learn the knowledge and skills they need to be successful in their school years and beyond. But the student can't learn if they're in a place where they're not comfortable learning. And I like to think of our schools as the soil in which seeds grow. Soil provides support and nutrients and a network of air and water for roots. And if the student is the seed with all the potential to grow and bloom, then the soil represents all the components of schools: a student-centered curriculum and instruction in core academic areas, support of social and emotional learning and mental health resources, and their physical environment, safe buildings, good air quality. So when we talk about anything that isn't reading, writing, and arithmetic, we're enhancing and fertilizing the soil so that our students can grow, so they will all learn and grow with the knowledge and skills they need to be successful.
Thank you. And Candidate Niehoff.
I think we should start with the basics. And I want to explain why I'm concentrating on that. Because only 39.5% of students were proficient in mathematics and 49.4% in reading in 2022. And that data came from Department of Education, which means we are neglecting and deviating into all kind of social engineering. So my explanation starts with the basics and filled up on top of it.
Thank you. Our next question came from audience member online. We will begin with Candidate Nathan. What is your opinion about the separation of church and state as it pertains to public education?
Well, I believe in what the laws have provided for us with the separation of church and state. But I also am aware of our school district policies that do allow our students and our staff to express their religious views in the context of our schools. For example, we do allow prayer in schools, but students can individually pray on their own time, and we do facilitate for students who need a specific prayer location or a specific prayer time during the day so that it doesn't interrupt with other students' learning. We also allow organizations or students who are interested in bringing religious organizations or religious clubs to the school to allow to use our facilities and meet after school. There's very popular clubs in our schools that meet in the morning for prayers around the flagpole. So we have the ability for individuals to express their religious life as long as it doesn't interfere with the free and appropriate access to public education for all students, no matter what their religious beliefs are.
Thank you. And Candidate Niehoff.
Separation church and state does not exist. It is a myth. If you look at the Constitution of the United States, read very carefully, it does not have the separation of church and state. What our founding fathers meant that the state will not dictate what kind of religion people will pursue. It's up to the person to choose. Saying that, I believe that it's absolutely a necessity to ensure that our children have the life of faith. And it's up to the parents decide what kind of faith they're going to have. I will absolutely promote the life of faith, the religious prayers, and even the ceremonies, appropriate ceremonies in the schools.
Thank you. We have a couple of audience questions that revolve around funding. The first question, we're going to begin with Candidate Niehoff. Please explain how local, state, and federal funding works in our schools and how it affects the school board's governance.
Thank you. It's a loaded question. But I'm not going to fail. I will explain. So there is a funding which comes from the local taxes. There is a federal funding, and there is a state funding. Rochester Public School Board receives approximately 75% of the funding from the state. And they are dependent on that funding. So saying that, I believe that the school has so many different programs which are not necessary, and that they should cut down some expenses on the building. And I also believe that they have a big deficit which has to be paid off. That's my plan for the budget for Rochester Public School Board, because $307 million $525,000 are sapping the buying power of the district. Thank you.
Thank you, and candidate Nathan.
We do get the majority of our funding from the state government, followed by our local property taxes and then our federal share. One of the challenges in our state funding providing such a large portion of our revenues is that state funding has not kept up with inflation since 2003. If it had kept up with inflation, we would have over $1,000 more per pupil. Do the math when you multiply that by 17,000 pupils, and you can see where some of our budget deficit is coming from. We also have a $15 million special education cross-subsidy. The federal government mandates that we provide special education services and promise to pay all of the money, but they've never paid more than 40%. The state government doesn't make up the difference. So every year we have to take from our general fund, which comes from your local property taxes, $15 million to cover that special education cross-subsidy. So how does it affect our school board decision-making? We have to constantly look for ways to be very efficient with our budget. And I'm not going to have time to talk about the debt, but I will talk about it in a future question.
Thank you, and we have a rebuttal.
I don't think that Rochester Public School Board was efficient because they just have built 4 brand new schools with the gender-neutral bathroom and are in the process of demolishing the old school building. I think this is the excess of expenses. I think more needs to be done.
Thank you, and we have another rebuttal.
So here's a good time to talk about the debt and the building of our new schools. We needed to build those new schools because our existing schools were bursting at the seams. We had capacity above 95% in a number of schools, and that's not a safe and welcoming learning environment for students to work. Our new schools are top of the line, efficient, healthy, and they're healthy spaces for children to learn. We're hearing from everybody at these new spaces that they feel a sense of relief and breath, that in the new schools that they can learn and teach, and in the old schools, the space has been open for them to learn.
Thank you. Oh, one rebuttal per question, sorry. Our next question also is somewhat a funding question. We're going to begin with candidate Niehoff. Do you support a school voucher system? Why or why not?
Absolutely. I believe that every school supposed to have the competition, because in competition everybody wins. When there is a competition, you are working better and harder to prove that your product or your service is the best. And I don't say that the Rochester Public School Board is giving the best service.
Thank you, and candidate Nathan.
Well, personally, I am opposed to a school voucher system. There have been many studies of voucher systems in other states that demonstrate that they do not promote better student outcomes for students who use them. The schools that the vouchers are used for do not have to provide the same free and appropriate public education for our special education students. And in addition, as a school board member, your responsibility is to make sure that your public school district has adequate funding in order to provide services to the students in your public schools. A voucher system would divert and divest money from our public schools to private and parochial schools that do not have to follow the same rules that public schools do, that do not have to accept the same students that public schools do, that do not have to provide the same accountability measures that public schools do, and do not have to live to the same quality standards that are required in our public school system. So I would be opposed to a voucher system.
Thank you, and we have a rebuttal.
Thank you. I don't think so. I see a lot of children who are greatly successful after finishing the home schools, parochial schools, and religious schools. And they're wonderful. They're not scared. They have critical thinking, and they actually work with their parents and the family, and they're very successful at the college. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next audience question. We are going to begin with candidate Nathan. Will the school's curriculum Will the school's curriculum be transparent and available for the parents to review? To review what is being taught to our children?
So when parents want to know what's being taught in the classroom, we tell them to start with their student's teacher. Our teachers do an excellent job of sharing curriculum, often day by day, week by week, month by month, in calendars, newsletters, through Google Classroom, and emails. Parent-teacher conferences also provide an opportunity for that exchange of information about curriculum. But as is required by state statute, the district also has a request for reconsideration of educational resources procedure when a parent has a concern with district-adopted textbooks or instructional materials. The procedure starts with a form that identifies the specific item and reason for concern. Following a discussion with the principal, a parent can request that a teacher provides an alternative curriculum for their child that addresses the same state standards. A parent may also request that the District Reconsideration Committee reevaluate the use of a textbook or instructional materials, and we have a number of representatives of educators, parents, and community members on that committee. So the information about the curriculum is available to parents through their child's teacher, and if there's a concern, there is a way for parents to opt their child out of that curriculum.
Thank you. And Candidate Niehoff.
I support complete transparency in curriculum. I support the rights of the parents to freely access their child's curriculum. The curriculum should be posted online and be easily available. And I want to express my opinion about reconciliation of institutional materials. My opponent came up with the new policy, which actually made more difficult for the parent to withdraw the curriculum or contested material. You have to go through the 3 committees. Plus, if you are not succeeding in this, it's going to be an appellate committee. Who in the world has time for weeks and months spent in committees and all kind of meetings? So that's why how the school is closing the door for the parents to affect the curriculum.
And we have a rebuttal.
My opponent is right. I did write the policy in conjunction with our curriculum and instruction director and our policy committee, and I can assure you there are not 3 committees. It starts with a conversation with the principal of the school. There is a form to be completed. There is 1 district reconsideration committee, and we have a time frame that reconsideration has to be completed within 30 days. So it's a 30-day process for a parent to submit information, for it to be considered, and for them to reach a decision.
Thank you. Our next audience question, we will begin with Candidate Niehoff. Can you explain the difference between critical race theory and critical thinking, and how you think they are or are not taught in our schools?
Critical race theory, I believe, it is the theory which started at the colleges, and it's slowly creeped into the education in the schools. Equity, white privilege, and the theory of oppressed and oppressors are the components of the critical race theory. Critical thinking is a different. Critical thinking, it's when you are not believing 100% what the person or theory had says, but you are searching and developing the critical mind, and you are searching for the answer. So I think I answered. I don't think there are enough critical thinking teaching in the schools.
Thank you. Candidate Nathan.
Well, one of the areas in our graduate profile is actually called critical thinker. I can read it to you. Applies information, creative thinking, and problem-solving skills to address evolving real-world issues. Seeks diverse viewpoints to identify and evaluate possible solutions. Uses data and logic to make informed and productive decisions. Our student-centered deeper learning strategy in our strategic plan will bring a refocus on critical thinking to help every student develop those skills. Now, critical race theory is not taught in Rochester Public Schools, but it has been weaponized by far-right political activists and the anti-public school movement to deter and dissuade school districts from undertaking the necessary work of equity. What we call educational equity is giving students access to and the opportunity to participate in high-quality learning experiences that build knowledge and skills for success in school and beyond. We achieve it by creating welcoming learning environments for all and addressing the unique learning needs of each student.
Candidate Niehoff.
Thank you. It was beautifully said, but let me tell you what this practically means. Latest example of equity application. You probably heard about the Minneapolis Federation of Teachers and their contract with Minneapolis Public School District. So that contract had a clause. And that clause says that the white teachers will be laid off before teachers of colors, and it was done for the sake of equity. So tell me, how equitable is that? I say that is reverse discrimination.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the audience, and we will begin with candidate Nathan. What do you feel is the biggest challenge facing the district, and how would you have the board address it?
Well, I think our biggest challenge is also our biggest opportunity. And I'm going to go back to the strategic plan. Our students, our teachers, our families have faced the most difficult years of education in the past few years, between COVID, issues of racial justice. But during that time, we took a look at what our students needed to learn, not just to recover from COVID, but to accelerate their learning into the future. And that's what this strategic plan is all about. It is complicated. It covers all the areas of our educational system, from academic success to social and emotional supports to supporting our staff, both with mental health resources and curriculum. And it's going to be a challenge to keep everybody motivated and to keep everybody engaged. But what I'm excited about so far in the implementation is the motivation and the engagement that we're seeing from our staff and our students and our families in response to what will be a challenging implementation of the strategic plan.
Thank you. Candidate Niehoff?
Would you please repeat the question?
Yes. What do you feel is the biggest challenge facing the district? How would you have the board address it?
I believe the biggest challenge is the mental health of children. And I want to explain why. I believe that the mental issues are getting bigger. And I believe that there are two ways to approach the mental health crisis. And the first is help the children to deal with mental health through counseling and therapy. But the second one is to find out why there is such a rise of mental health issues in the children. And there, where you can use the critical thinking, I found a lot of publications stated that coronavirus pandemic response measures cause a lot of stress and anxiety in children. Lockdowns, masks, testing, distancing made more harm for children than good. And we need to learn that. And we need to we have to redo that. I'm so thankful that President Biden announced the end of pandemic. So I have the hope. I hope that all the stress is going to be behind us with the mental health issues.
Thank you. The next question from the audience, we will begin with candidate Nathan. What programs in our schools do you feel are not necessary?
You said
Candidate Nathan.
Well, we're going to be having that conversation in the next year as we undertake another round of budget cuts to address the deficit for the fiscal year '24. But it should not just be up to the school board member to determine what things should be cut. Personally, I would try to keep things away from the programs that are being implemented in the strategic plan. But we are creating a community budget and finance advisory committee this fall, where we will be asking members of the community who want to take a deep dive into our finances and our programs and our structures to participate in a multi-year service and help us identify our community priorities, our budgetary priorities, our revenue limitations, and how we can address them as a community to prioritize which programs are the most important for the success of our students.
Thank you. Candidate Niehoff.
I believe that equity, white privilege, and the theory of oppressed and oppressors are one of the most dangerous ideas pushed on our children. And I want to explain why. They are not new ideologists. The theory of oppressed and oppressors caused loss of human rights, poverty, division, national wars, and revolutions in the countries like Soviet Union, Cuba, and Venezuela in the past. So why are we repeating the same?
Thank you. And another rebuttal.
So we've heard some words about equity and white privilege and theory of oppression, but it's hard for me to understand why anybody who wants to lead a school district would not want every student to feel that they're welcome and they belong in their school. Imagine what it feels like for our students of color, our students from diverse ethnic groups, our LGBTQ students, their classmates and their families, to hear that there are adults who do not want to normalize their diverse identities and characteristics, and that their diverse identities and characteristics are based on contentious and controversial theories. This reference to negativity about equity really isn't helpful for our student growth.
Thank you. I'll remind the candidates that's the end of your 3 regular rebuttal cards. The next question from the audience will begin with candidate Niehoff. What do you feel is the most important role you would have as a school board member?
I believe that discipline and I'm sorry. Would you please repeat the question?
Most important role as a school board member?
I believe that the safe learning environment for our students, that would be probably my best achievement as in this role.
Thank you. And candidate Nathan.
I think one of the things that we learned during the pandemic is managing the multiple voices of input from our community. That is we get a lot of feedback from people, and it's really hard to have people understand that we're getting feedback from 17,000 parents and our 3,000 staff. So figuring out a way to have all of those voices in your head coalesce into influencing what your decision is, even if there's some that you agree with and there's some that you disagree with. So there's a balance between getting public feedback. There's also a balance between the limitations that we have of our financial revenues and the constant need to really look at cutting programs that are valued by people in our community and our students. So for me, there is not just one role, but it's balancing the multiple roles of getting feedback, doing oversight, and the limitations that we have with our financial limitations.
Thank you. It's time for closing statements now. As a reminder, you each have 2 minutes for closing statements, and candidate Niehoff will go first.
Good evening. The students in Rochester Public Schools are failing in every measure and metric, and my opponent is at the center of this problem. Recent data from the Department of Education was published by Post Bulletin on August 31st, and this Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment Test scores for Rochester 3rd to 11th grade fell 24.4% in mathematics and 9.3% in reading since 2013. That did not happen overnight. That started in 2013, way before Corona pandemic. I believe that the social engineering theories are on the rise. So is the disruptive behavior of our children. And in other words, they own this. They do. My vision and the vision of the rest for your children, candidates Kim Rishavi, John Whalum, Ray Parker, refocus our time and energy back to academics, provide this safe learning environment, and pay off the district debts. My name is Elena Niehoff. Please vote for me and for your children. Our website, foryourchildren.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Nathan. Yes.
This is a critical time of action in Rochester Public Schools. We spent the past year listening to our students, families, and educators, and we crafted detailed plans and initiatives in response to what we heard. This election is key to determining whether those plans and initiatives will be allowed to be fully implemented. My opponent and the colleagues on her slate have told us during this election cycle that if elected to the board, they will deny what our students have told us they need to be successful academically and to feel welcomed and supported in our schools. They'll derail the implementation of the Planning for Purpose strategic plan and substitute their different ideas. They'll distract our educators from the work they want to do to plan student-centered, culturally responsive teaching and curriculum. They'll dismantle the equity policy that empowers all students to learn about and express their own history, cultures, and identities. And they dismiss the need for additional financial resources, and as you heard tonight, would support vouchers to take money away from our public schools that support the strategies and initiatives designed to improve student outcomes. If reelected to the school board, I will build on the strategic plan implementation work we've already started, providing oversight, monitoring, and feedback to the process. I will stand for curriculum that teaches honest history and supports every student's race, culture, or identity. I will support the financial and people resources that will be needed to achieve our desired outcomes. Success in the classroom begins when all students feel they are safe, welcomed, and belong in their school community. It begins when educators and families are respected and supported with resources that meet their students' needs. I will never stop fighting to make sure that happens in Rochester Public Schools. My name is Cathy Nathan, and I'm running for seat 6. I would be honored by your vote in the general election, and for more information, you can visit cathynathan.com.
Thank you, and we have a rebuttal.
I would like to quote a paragraph from Rochester Public School Adopted Budget 2021-2022. The quote, it appears, page 115, so you all can look at that. It appears that additional local property taxes revenue, additional state aid, or expenditure reductions are needed by school year 2023-2024, or there will be a fiscal cliff the district will experience. Let it sink in your mind, a fiscal cliff.
Thank you. We will tie up the, we have a quick rebuttal here.
In the 2022-2023 budget, we describe how we are going to be handling our financial situation going forward. We managed the $23 million deficit this year. We have a plan to manage the deficit in the 2024 year, and we will be evaluating the possibility of a referendum in 2023 to address further fiscal challenges in fiscal year 2025 or beyond. We have known for a long time that state funding is not adequate to fund us, and we have a plan to address it.
Thank you. That concludes our closing statements and all rebuttals. Before we begin the next forum, we'll take a very short break. We're going to begin the next forum promptly at 7:30. I will speak with candidates prior to that. Thank you, candidates, for coming tonight, for participating. Thank you to our sponsors. And don't forget to vote on November 8th. If you've already voted, since early voting started on the 23rd, if you have already voted and would like to make a change to your ballot, you can visit mnvotes, mnvotes.org for more information on that process. Thank you.